recording is started, and then I will just be a minute or so. I'm looking for something to talk about.
Yeah, no problem.
Game on!
Barrier activated.
You're going to be fine. Heal up. I'm under attack.
Death comes.
All right, so this is an example of maybe a little bit long of a wraparound, so it might be getting into your question earlier about like when should you be going for that sort of thing. Here, maybe we're unaware of like kind of where our team's at and where they're going. But if they're all going down this angle right here, then coming around is just putting us right next to them anyways, right?
Right.
So it doesn't really accomplish a ton. And then if they're not going through this angle, so let's say our team is coming back like and coming through here, well then I'd be thinking to myself, all right, well, you're getting we always want to think like what's the fastest way to get from point A to point B while also being sneaky, while also being able to get the jump on them, etc. Right? You kind of want to think about those two things, kind of fast, safe, but then also sneaky. Right? Those are kind of the things that you're looking for when you're looking for off angles or flanks. And to me, I'd just be thinking, all right, why would I go all the way around this whole side when I could just come, teleport from here to here and get the exact same amount of value out of it, right? Be much shorter, get you in there sooner to be able to do things, especially if your team's running in ahead of you. So this is just maybe a little bit of a long wraparound, though. If that repeats on a regular basis, then we can delve more in depth on it and whatnot. But for the moment, it's just a more minor thing. It's just this one instance. But does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think it was more I didn't realize how close my team was.
Yeah.
So I thought I had time to do the full wrap, but I didn't. So
yeah. So in either way, even if you did not have your team with you or you did have your team with you, probably either way, it's just smarter to just go through that different angle because it'll be faster and pretty much the same thing. And then because either way you're using teleport. And then other than that, yeah, it's just paying attention to where your team is as well. Because now you're just lagging slightly behind your team. Just that's not major, but take a little bit of extra time. Okay, I do like that you're trying to get the back angle. That is really good. That's a good idea that you're not just trying to run at them and shoot at their shields and stuff like that. All right. But I think we end up forcing our fade out and then canceling it here. So we're getting in some good damage. All right. We're shooting at them. We end up fading maybe a little bit early because we don't necessarily as of the current moment. We're not taking damage. There's no stuns coming our way. So really, we want to be fading when we start to feel pressured out, right? So when we feel like, we're about to die because either they're going to stun us or boop us, or they're going to look to shoot. All of them are shooting at us, right? So here, maybe a little bit early of a fade because we didn't really have a ton of people shooting at us yet, and we still have full HP and there were no stuns. Then we end up canceling it, and the problem now is that we're canceling it behind them in the middle of their whole team, and now this is when they're all looking at us, and we could end up dying because we don't have a way to get out now, which is an issue, but we'll see if we do die. Yeah, we do, right? So that's the issue there. So that death is probably preventable if rather than canceling our Wraith in their team, we cancel it, we run back to our team with it, right, and we get to safety. Because once we press that Wraith, well then, yeah, you weren't in danger before, but now you've just given them more time to look at you, and you don't have that, you no longer have that get out of jail free card. So once you play that get out of jail free card, even if you play it too early, now you have to run out of jail or else you're running back into jail. Right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know why I Wraith so early there. Maybe I was thinking reload, Wraith reload kind of thing, which is probably not a good thing, but...
Yeah, and additionally, it's... Wait, I think I had something in my head. Yeah, additionally, like, don't do note that it wasn't like incredibly early. It really was at maximum. That was probably like, unless they just didn't shoot at us, really they probably would have pressured us within the next like 2 to 3 seconds. It was just a couple seconds early. Probably the larger issue ahead of the early Wraith was the staying in after the usage of Wraith.
Death comes.
Yeah, so at this point, it's kind of lost. I think I was trying to find a hiding spot for the next go. Or should I have waited to just stack?
I think that that's perfectly reasonable as long as you're being safe about it. Now here, I would say go and duel the Ashe, because this is a wonderful opportunity where Ashe just ran off on her own. And when it comes to duels, right, a 1v1, or even sometimes duels can be more than 1v1, right? You want to actively take duels where you know that either you are even or at an advantage, and you run away from duels where you're at a disadvantage, right? And then a duel where you have an advantage, that's called an opportunity, and you want to actively take opportunities, right? So in this situation, right, or in like different things that define all of them, right? An advantage or disadvantage could be which character is better at dueling. Out of Ashe and Reaper, which character is better at dueling if you are, within 5 meters?
Right. Yeah, I mean, Reaper should win that every time.
Yeah,
so.
and then Ashe, maybe if you're changing it up and now you're at, 20, 30 meters, then Ashe wins that, right? Not gonna work out too well for you. There you could add in other things like who has more health. Maybe it's a 2v1. So one of you has a surprise advantage right here. Like, who has the surprise advantage?
Right. I should have the advantage here because I don't think they know that I'm in this position yet.
Yeah, so we would get the first shot off for free, right? Which means that she's already like half HP, right? So we only need like 2 shots here to kill her, 3 shots to kill her. We are the better close range dueler. This would open up probably at the very minimum they would have to waste res if we're watching the body, then that may be open, and we're baiting the res. We could possibly get 2 kills, kill up the Mercy when she comes to the res. Now, if they all push and they all like push you back and you can't kill her, then at the very minimum you just baited out the res, and that's a big cooldown that's out of the way. So it's still value kind of either way you go with that. But you have the the opportunity to go for a kill, possibly 2 kills, or at least get an ability out of the way. And this is it's relatively low risk. Now, if this was Ashe and Mercy who came for you, maybe that's slightly different. Or if their whole team came, or you're already low HP, or Ashe knew you were here, right? Those change the equation. But in this situation, we have the jump on her, and we have the advantage in this close range.
Right.
But we drop.
Yeah, I was more just focused on being sneaky, which didn't work out in this case. Because I think the SIG saw me, and then they all kind of called me out at that point. So.
Yep.
So yeah, switch over to Kree here, and then we just have a really hard time just making a play at this point, I think, from what I remember. And some of these misses are, I like literally just played with myself the day before, so don't criticize me too much on my aim here.
All right.
Taking the call. Who's with me? They ain't finished yet.
Okay, like throwing up to the high ground. Okay. Possibly to see the Mercy here, we don't necessarily need to drop to see her, especially like if you can, for example, you can just see her if you're peeking over the edge over to the side here. You can look directly down. You can pretty much be standing on the edge and look directly below you. So if somebody's below you, you shouldn't have a reason to drop from the high ground, because then that gives up your advantage. It means that they're able to shoot you easier and you lose your survivability. If you're trying to stop from accidentally falling off, you can crouch, because that lowers your movement speed and give yourself a little bit more control over making sure you're not accidentally walking off, that sort of idea.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then that proceeds to get us killed here. No, dude. noting that that's death number 3. We'll maybe go in depth on that in a moment. Okay. Torb is... Oh, very nice. I don't even know how we got a headshot from that angle, but it worked. He was like turned away from us, but it... Oh. We popped this after they popped the window, so a little bit of reaction timing there. Well, it's maybe an issue doing this with in this situation.
Yeah, I mean the Rhine's a little bit too far up to actually shield me for the build up of this too.
And then even if you did have so probably we wouldn't want to do it even in the absence of window, right? Because we don't have Reinhardt, we don't have protection. Even if Reinhardt was standing in front of us, that window is going to shred through Reinhardt's shield and subsequently you. So probably don't want to ult into a window if we don't have sufficient means of staying alive, because then that means that we're going to end up getting shredded. And then we do end up getting a kill. That's possibly, and then that I would say, to that, let's see, D.Va steps in front of you, which is, a little bit lucky for, your teammate saving your butt. You could also say that maybe they just, for some reason, Ashe tosses a dynamite at you, right? If they are, I don't even see any shots coming your direction. I'm not even sure how many people are even looking at you in this situation. Okay, like Oressa's not shooting at you, Bap's not shooting at you, Sigma's ulting while you're going above the shield while you are high nooning. Torbjorn's dead. Ashe is dynamiting. So in the situation, I would say that they are not adequately responding to you. So note that just because a mistake is not punished doesn't mean it's not a mistake. It just might mean that their team's not great here, and if they were, 200, 300 SR higher, which is you're trying to perform at, at a higher division, this would basically get punished at those ranks. And if you're trying to hang at those ranks, well, then that means that you need to be able to not make mistakes like this at those ranks. So just be careful about doing that without like any protection. And then we end up dying anyways, because we end up getting Sigma fluxed up in the air, which maybe we could have gone around that if we weren't high nooning as well. Right.
True.
So, trying to think here. Why don't we go really quickly through, and we're going to count your deaths, and then we're going to go into survivability. For me, assuming that the death rate is going to stay semi-stable throughout this game and be around the same, and then we can go into that afterwards. Right now, we're at 4 deaths. We can skip forwards a little bit. Okay, we die again. That's 5 deaths. Okay. We almost died there, but we made it out. Good. Okay. 6 deaths. Okay, 7 deaths. And that's round. Okay. Maybe doing a little bit better here on defense with staying alive. No, so it's 8 deaths there.
Yeah, I think because on Ashe I just kept the range a little bit more.
Okay, it's 9 deaths. Okay. We'll do 10 deaths. Okay, nearing the end, and then we'll go into it. 11 deaths. And then I think we come back out here. We stall. 12 deaths. I think that's just a stall death, though. It's, not a massive deal. And then that's game. So, 12 deaths. And this game was 17 minutes total. Take out a couple minutes for in between rounds. Let's say it's 15 minutes, right? So 12 deaths over 15 minutes. Let's discuss that, because obviously you probably already get that deaths are not a good thing, right? You probably already understand that, but sometimes, I'd say a lot of times, people don't really understand the full depths of why a death is not a good thing and really the consequences that come out of your deaths. So let's review that real quick. So your deaths, right? If you're dying 12 times, every single death is not only 10 seconds of respawn time, but then also 10 seconds of walk back time approximately, which means that that is roughly 20 seconds per death that you are completely inactive doing absolutely nothing. So if we were to do 12 times 20 and then divided by 60 for seconds, right? That means that during this game, this 15-minute game, you spent approximately 4 minutes of time where you just were non-existent, right? Which is, a little bit under a fourth of the game, right? But that is still a lot of time. That's the time you could be using to get like 3 high noons off, to be getting a lot of kills, a lot of damage in 4 minutes, right? A lot of abilities out there doing things. And then it's also very important to note that it is not just a lack of impact, it is um actively putting your team at a disadvantage when you're dying, right? It's because when you die, then your team's more likely to lose the fight. So in a lot of cases, that can be your impact on losing the fight. In fact, we've seen ourselves die a couple times. We died at the start of 2 fights, and we ended up dying at the end of another fight, and ended up like staggering a little bit longer, right? That can we don't have to go into staggering for the moment, but just overall deaths are not good, and we want to look to cut down on our deaths, because cutting down on how many deaths you have means that you're going to be able to increase your value. Now, 2 things within that. In a moment here, we'll talk about like how you can cut down your deaths and what things cause deaths. But then before that, do note that I don't want you to take this in the complete opposite direction, because if you purely play to survive, then you're not really going to be doing a whole lot. You can sit and spawn the entire game and then never die, but then never actually accomplish anything, right?
Right.
So you want to make sure you're finding a nice, healthy balance of going in, being aggressive, doing things, but then also staying alive and being safe as you're doing it, right? You need to find the balance between the two. And here it's looking like we're a little bit more leaning towards the not safe part, where we're not paying attention and and we end up dying a lot. And then we do have where we have a good aggression going on, but we just want to learn how to manage staying alive. So I'm just warning, don't take it and then go in the opposite direction with it. So now,
Okay.
how do you stop deaths? Right, you stop death. The 4 main things that
Well,
good.
let me ask you before you get
Yep.
into that part is would like the average deaths change depending on what hero? Like if I'm playing one hero first another, should I expect to have more deaths, or is that like
Um,
one thing?
It maybe a little bit. It can change if you have like more experience on a different hero. Some heroes are just safer than others, right? So like I'm not, if we're talking about DPS in particular, for example, like you might have, maybe a couple more deaths if you're playing Reaper in comparison to Ashe, but deaths are just as bad, Reaper or Ashe, and Reaper's just inherently a little bit more of a risky, frisky character, where he is going in and getting more aggressive, but he still doesn't want to die. So even if maybe you could expect maybe an extra death or 2, that doesn't mean that extra death or 2 is a good thing, because if you're playing superbly and you're trying to rank up and carry your games and play to the best of your ability, your deaths should be as low as possible. Games, for example, that you can just like that I've had, for example, in my past, where I can definitively say, oh snap, I just hard carried that game. That was a fantastic game, because I went 40-2, right? I had a like 20 KD. It was, it's in that sort of, and not say that happens all the time, but that's an example to show that when you don't die a lot, even if you're playing a slightly more risky character, then you're going to be able to accomplish more.
Gotcha. And then one more off of
Hmm.
that. I mean, this might be derailing a little bit,
Sure.
but I noticed a lot of times as I've been working on my aim here and it gets a little bit better, a lot of times I end up having to take a lot of really crappier angles, especially on like say like Widow and Ashe, just to be able to get a shot. What do I do in those situations? Like say this is more like solo queuing where like people are just running around and
Mm.
doing whatever. So I don't really have a shield or, someone to kind of cover. Like and I have to just kind of, peek out and hope that I don't get wrecked. What do I do in that situation in terms of like survivability?
So that's a little bit more situation by situation based, because I'd have to see, because there's a lot of different things that affect survivability, which we'll go over in a moment here. So it really, when it comes to deaths, it's a lot of a situation by situation basis because there's a lot of places where you can go wrong with it. Um, would be pretty much my general answer, and then as we go along here, we'll maybe look at your gameplay, and I will show you as we go through the deaths of, okay, here you could have done this, here you could have done that, here you could have done this, right? And that way you're able to see it as we go along. So without more specifics on a situation, I would probably say that I could go into the long I'll go ahead and go along into the general explanation for deaths, and that should help to answer the question without being very specific because I didn't have a specific example.
Right. Yeah, I
Yep.
guess what I'm just looking for is when should I kind of look for the peaks first, look for survival and waiting for other things to happen in the game before I peek
Um.
and take
So
that action? You know what I mean?
yeah, so it depends, like, on, do they have a sniper? How much range damage do they have? Are you expecting, like, if you peek the corner, to immediately get shredded? Making, you want to make sure that you have cover, that you are adequately, that you're able to instantly get back behind the corner. Now, cover's usage might be something we actually go over at some point here because I'm not sure how much I've seen. Like, I've seen it be maybe slightly iffy. So we'll discuss that. But I would say that pretty much, like, if you're playing a sniper, really the only time that you should not be actively peeking to shoot is if you are directly in danger, right? So, like, there's an ultimate
Okay.
happening, something like that, or if you have a lack of resources. So lack of resources could be your health bar. So if you're 1 HP, then you can't peek and shoot if you're 1 HP because you're gonna die. If you are at a massive disadvantage, so let's say you already lost the fight, and you're just completely backing out, and you don't want to be sitting there and peeking. And those are examples. But then, even in those in between fights, sometimes, even like as a widowmaker, you might be able to peek and get some kills or whatnot.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So things that cause deaths, right? Things main four are going to be poor positioning, a lack of awareness, a misuse of abilities, and over aggression. We will break down each one that we get into, but pretty much every time you die, you want to be thinking, like, you have that 20 seconds while you're respawning, so think through, all right, why did I just die there? What caused me to just die? Then think, okay, rather than, what just happened, what could I have done better? So, for example, if you were, if you died because you're like, you died and you're like, okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, I was out of position. Why was I out of position? What was I doing wrong? Okay, I was too far away from cover, or I dropped from the high ground, right? Like that one death we said, okay, it was because you dropped from the high ground. And then you can think, okay, how can I apply what is the solution to apply? The solution would be a lot of times the opposite of what we did. So if the thing that we did wrong was dropping from the high ground, then the solution is to stay on the high ground and to make sure that in the future the application is thinking about staying on the high ground so that we're not accidentally dropping into the middle of their team, right? That is kind of the step by step of how you look to identify and improve upon that. And then, like I said, we'll go through and we'll analyze the deaths, and you just want to make sure you're paying attention to these different ways that we die, and we'll discuss, we'll continue to go in depth on the different aspects of it. But generally speaking, does that whole concept make sense? Do you have any questions on it?
No, I think that makes sense in general.
All right. So, yep, we will continue to go into the specifics. So, this happened. All right.
Payload's moving out. All in a day's enemy turret destroyed.
Okay, probably look to flash in that situation slightly faster. Flash just pretty much you want to be flashing anytime someone's within range of it, because whenever somebody's in range of it, that's usually a good situation for it. So here, if we flash Sigma, that stops his kinetic grasp and means that you can finish him off very easily, and your team gets the kill on him. That means that maybe you can swap over to Rissa faster, and it basically secures the kill on the Sigma. Here, we could, if you're worried about that Flash getting eaten, all you have to do is flash the floor, flash to the left, flash to the right, flash above, and you can just get around the Sigma Grasp, and then that is a way that you can very easily kill him here rather than letting him escape and get away with it.
Easy.
And then noting that when we do throw it, we're throwing it into an Orisa Gold and a Sigma Grasp.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was worried about the grasp there, and I overthought it a bit too
Yep.
much.
So you throw it around. Same thing with like a Genji Deflect, right? As well as you just look to throw it to the sides because it's not a very big radius. Similar maybe to like a Reinhardt shield as well. You can throw it above Reinhardt's shield.
Good job, team. Let's keep it going. Very much. Enemy turret destroyed.
All right, so in this situation, right, and note that a couple times it can, can be a little bit of each. When you're analyzing, I would say here it was primarily 2 out of the 4 things we talked about. Also, you could add in like a smaller 5th category, which is just a little bit smaller than the others, which is like movement. So, like if you're standing still or something of that sort, that can also lead to deaths, but that's a smaller category. Here I'd say there's 2 primary causes. We're gonna rewatch it and let me know if you can take a guess at what the reasons why we died was.
Good job, team. Let's keep it going.
Right. Yeah, I kind of just walked out of cover.
Yeah, so that would be poor positioning, right? Very
Right.
very much a lack of cover, and then this is like a subcategory of positioning, but over aggression. Because when you're getting over aggressive, by nature you're too far forwards, which is a positioning thing, but it's also an aggression thing, like a mindset thing. So it's its own subcategory. But here we just get a little bit over aggressive, right? Notice how we kind of like roll into their team and walk ahead of our whole team, right? Like kind of look at us in comparison to our team, right? Really far forwards. We also leave cover. We're going to now discuss cover usage, since I think I've seen a couple instances where we haven't been respecting it. And then this one is, can be one of the bigger categories within that. So let's review it.
Ain't gonna dispense it. Stay there.
So if I am standing right around here, right where I'm shooting, if I'm standing here and the enemy team is standing all the way over here, and they're all looking at me and shooting at me, it takes me 1, 2, 3 seconds get behind cover, get around the wall. Now, from cover, you cannot shoot through solid objects, so we are fine and dandy, but in that time it just took us to walk from point A to point B, we died because it was too long. Now, I can stand right here and do largely the same amount of stuff, do pretty much everything that I just did, except for now it takes me half a second to duck behind cover, right? Which is 6 times faster than what it just took me previously. So now if somebody starts shooting at me, Ash starts shooting at me, I do this and I'm fine instantaneously, right? Or, half a second, right? Pretty much instantaneously.
Right.
So when it comes to cover, good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover as a general statement. Now, there's a lot of different types of cover, right? You have slopes, like so. You have pillars, so we can do this in between shots. We can do it while reloading, when we're being shot at, when we're, just need the back around the corner. Corner, right? Same thing. Random objects that are sitting around, like the payload. Pillar, corner, doorway, corner. They're all over the place. Additionally, high grounds all act as natural cover, right? They can see me. Now they can't see me. Now they can't, right? The whole thing acts as natural cover as long as we are using it properly. And then additionally, characters can't usually reach us up on high grounds. 2/3 need to take the stairs, and then the other third that can get to us need to use abilities, which adds an additional layer of survivability. And then additionally, we have a ton of visibility from up here. We can shoot here and there and here and there and there. But on a low ground, we can't really see over there, or any of this high ground, so we lose out on visibility as well. So high grounds, cover, fantastic. Make sure we're looking to take it.
Sure. So specifically with Cass, because with the other, like I said, with Ashe, I'm a little bit better in Widow, just because they're longer range, so I don't really have to worry about the range. With Cass, I feel like because I need to be closer to actually, do real damage, I feel like I have a hard time picking the right cover. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
close enough to actually do something, but far enough away where I'm not,
Sure.
walking into them.
So firstly, let's establish McCree's range. Right? What is his range? McCree's range is going to start at around 10 meters because at this range you can now land a flashbang. 10 meters is your flashbang range, and we want to be able to land that. But you also don't want to get too close because there's other characters that do close range better, right? Think Reaper, May, Brig, Reinhardt, right? Those types of characters who just do a little bit better close range than you. Okay.
Right.
Then we start to experience fall off damage the further away we get. So we do 1, 2, 3 shots to kill. We get back to here, and I think it's about around here 1, 2, 3. Now it's 4 shots to kill, right? Which isn't too bad. So this isn't going to start the that's not going to be the end of our range, but it is just a note that that's where your fall off damage starts to happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots to kill, right? And then you can go back all the way back here and go to the extreme, and we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11 kills, shots to kill him. And then additionally, note that the further away you are, the less shots you're landing as well, because it's a smaller target. That's harder to hit than this, right? So overall, close, you want to probably have a range that's around between approximately, this is your preferred range, between 10 to probably capping at around like 30 meters, right? 10 to 30 meters is your rough approximate range, because once you get past that, then you're doing like 5-shot kills. So from here, let's see, at 30 meters, is 30 meters 5 shots? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so it's 5-shot kills. After that point, and then it's starting to just be too little damage. So from here, you can still do like 1, 2, 3-shot headshot kills, right? So you're still doing a decent amount of damage, right? It's just a little bit less at that range. So you're looking for roughly between 10 to 30 meters. Now, when it comes to high ground usage, in a decent amount of cases, high grounds and cover usage, right? In a lot of cases, you will have cover and high grounds within 10 to 30 meters. And if you do not, then you probably need to look for it and find it for cover in specific, not a high ground necessarily. If the high ground's too far away from the fight, like if they're all the way over here and we're on the high ground, and you don't have high noon, well then you're just kind of doing nothing from back here, so you want to get closer, right? High grounds, if it's not in the fight, then don't even try to be on it. Now, cover, we just discussed covers all over the place, right? I have cover here, 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 and then I can go here, 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 right? Here, 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 doorway, high ground, right? It's all over the place. It's throughout the entire game. There is probably going to be very, very limited amounts of time. There are places where there's very little cover, and that's that's an extra advanced step that we could take. But generally speaking, there will be cover. So if we, for example, are all the way back here, and we need to get from point A, and they're all the way up here, rather than sitting back here and just shooting and doing no damage, we might want to move closer, using cover the whole time we're approaching, and then playing off of here. Oh yeah, they're still pretty, they're still a little bit far away. We're outside of our range, so next time we get the opportunity, we're gonna, roll over to the side, and then now we've just used cover to cross this wide open area, and then we just got within our range. Right? So does that all make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
All right. Double kill. Oh, also, are you familiar with McCree's air roll tech? Not his air roll that they just added in where he's able to roll while midair. The air roll tech, which allows you to launch yourself upwards when rolling. I'm not even so it's hard to differentiate. This was in the game before they added in the other one. It's almost like a bug that was part of the game before they added in the midair roll. So are you familiar with what I'm talking about at all?
No, I don't think I've done that before.
Yeah.
Or maybe if I have, it's been by coincidence.
Yeah, so the issue with the one that they added in is it launches you downwards. So let's say I'm trying to get up to here. I'm not actually going to be able to do that because if I jump and roll, it launches me down, right? And that's an issue because now I can't do really cool tech to get to high grounds. Now, what you can do is the air roll tech, and that can actually launch you a little bit upwards, and then that actually allows you to get to really cool spots and cross the gaps and stuff like that in the game. That can be firstly very fun to learn how to do, and then also very handy in certain situations. So how do you do that tech? Well, you accomplish it by essentially pressing spacebar and then your roll button in very quick succession. So you're going to press basically space, roll, all within a millisecond. It's not both at the same time. If I press them both at the same time, it just kind of sends me in a roll normally. It needs to be one then the other, but in a very quick pacing. And that's how you do the air roll tech. I'd recommend practice at how to do it. You can do it. You can practice at it while you're just rolling around for movement, right? So you're in a game, you're just rolling out a spawn. Just practice it doing on the ground, because then you can get it into your muscle memory and know how to do it just anytime you're trying to do it. Because, you know, once you practice, the first time I tried to do it, it took me like a couple minutes to figure out how to even do it, and then now I can do it, you know, pretty much 90% of the time I try to do it.
Right.
Alright.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Welcome to Blizzard World. Ready for battle.
Reject.
So we were back here, you die. Okay, we're coming back, we're taking high ground.
Enemy turret here.
Yeah, so for that, like, I clearly can't take high ground by myself. Like, what do I do in that situation if my team's like, do I go with my team underneath, even though it's not the better position? Or do I continue to try to force the high ground?
So, I would probably note for your team that you probably, as a team, want to go and contest them on a high ground. Because otherwise, what are you going to do? You're going to sit on the... you're going to end up sitting on the low ground, and then they try to come and get you. Or they just shoot you from the high ground, and then you can't really do anything, right? So your team probably wants to be on the high ground, first of all. And then we'll go over into the other thing in a second. Though, give me a second, because my baby sister just crawled into the room, so I have to dispose of her really
All
quickly.
Good. All good.
Alrighty, I am back. Apologies for that.
All good.
Okay, so additionally, if you see that you have nobody on high ground with you, I think that it is okay to go and attempt to peek it, because in that situation, you can maybe open up for some kills, possibly there to avoid damage. You can look to use cover a little bit more heavily. So you see them start to look at you. Notice how we're wide. This is what you would call wide peeking. So notice from the time, you know, from here to cover means 1, 2, right? This is still, even though we're kind of near cover, we're also doing a little bit wide of a peek. Whereas, let's say we were standing here, right? Now we go pew, pew, pew. Instant cover, right? So Torbjorn starts shooting at us, and we don't take shots because we have a wall to use. So better cover adherence can negate damage that we take here. And then additionally, our team just ends up dying before we even end up able to do anything. And do note that that is partially our fault, since we died and we're not participating in the fight here because we ended up staggering ourselves. Are you familiar with the term staggering?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just means dying late, and then that means that our team now has 2 choices. Either they wait for us, in which case we've just put, in which case we just wasted a bunch of time, or they go in without us, and like they did, and now they're at a disadvantage, and then that's our impact on losing that fight because they're at a disadvantage.
Payload stop.
Come out and face me.
Enemy turret ahead.
Okay, so
here I'm kind of trying to be like, hey, I have a noon. Can we, you know, make them look at you, kind of thing. It was kind of what I was like trying to translate.
Yeah.
But they just kind of mostly just hid behind the sign cover.
I would say maybe not a great angle for it. I would say just going and taking high ground with your team would be more effective in this situation. Possibly like looking to roll. I mean, actually can't do that until we roll around. Yeah. So in this situation, maybe going up with our team could help to get off at high noon. This we should probably expect them just to have the high grounds as cover to use. I don't think it's it's not the worst idea, but then also think through, okay, so we get the high noon off, we
This
maybe
was
get a
a
kill,
doctor
but then
order.
like kind of okay, what
60
now,
seconds
right? We're
remaining.
now like really far out of the fight, out of our range, not on high ground, not with our team, right? Kind of isolated. So being with your team might be a better idea here than being off on our own. It yeah. So either way, it might not get you a fantastic high noon, but it probably would be putting us in better positioning for the fight. In the situation.
Gotcha. So when's because noon is one thing I'm really just
Mhm.
bad at,
Yep.
like getting a lot of value on.
Halo
Mhm.
What is
moving out.
when is like a good position and timing for a high
Sure.
noon? Because I know it's not initiating the fight,
Mhm.
but
So generally speaking, so timing we can go through kind of three different things here. So general ult timing, right? Um, when it comes to high noon, you probably want to use it after the fight has started. So not necessarily at the fight start. You can that'd be okay to use it at the fight start, but kind of near the end of the start of the fight. More towards like just in between that and the middle of the fight, somewhere within that. Because if you use it too early, they're gonna have all of their resources. They're gonna have all their shields, all their just their abilities to get away from you, to stop you, and then therefore it's not going to do as much. And then additionally, they're all going to be able to stop and look at you and shoot at you. But if we use it a little bit after the fight begins, then they're out of resources. They're a lot more distracted. They're not going to be able to all turn and look at you all at the same time. So it's going to get a little bit more value that way. So I'd probably recommend later of the start of the fight and then mid fight, would also be definitely acceptable. It'd be good timing for it. Late fight is situational. Early fight is situational. So like early start, and then in between fights is going to be very rare. Then additionally, when you're using it, you want to make sure you're using it when the enemy team does not have cover, because cover is the natural enemy of your ultimate. Because it is the number one thing that can counter ultimate, as every single character in the game can use cover and instantly negate your ultimate because you can't shoot them around the corner, right? So
right,
when you want to be using it, for example, is not when we're right here, but when we're right here and they have nowhere to run, right? They just have absolutely nowhere to go. Now you can think to over here, and they're all in the high ground, and the only way that this is going to get anything is if the Ash happens to be in bad positioning, which she did, and then you got the free kill, right? Um, so that was kind of a little bit relying on Ash messing up. Um, and then besides that, they were just all in the high ground, which means that they're all able to be very close to cover, so that we don't really have the opportunity to shoot them, right? So distracted, cover, maybe a little bit less abilities would be good. Now you also want to make sure that you're actually staying alive through high noon. Three different options to stay alive. Number one, protection. You can stand behind your team and the shields and stuff like that. Usually that's very low risk, but then also low reward, because you end up most of the time when you do that, you end up shooting at shields and tanks and stuff, and then you just have a lot in your way. You can off angle or flank with your high noon, and then usually that's going to be a little bit more of a medium risk, but then it can open up for a little bit more of like a like a high reward from it, because oftentimes that gets you around the shields and the things that can block you. And then finally, you have high nooning from really far away, which is kind of what we did there. We kind of did a little bit of a mix between an off angle and far away, and that means that they can't really. Just be careful if they have like snipers. But that means that they can't do as effective damage to us, and we can get it off before they kill us. And then that's going to be usually more of around like that one's kind of like a little bit all over the place. Maybe it's going to depend, possibly around like a medium, something along those lines. So when you're looking at high noon, you're looking for, do they have cover? What do they have abilities? Are they distracted? And then how am I going to stay alive through it?
gotcha.
Hmm? Okay. We're gonna.
Yeah, this is something I've been working on too, which seems to be helping a little bit. Is I noticed I end up I guess, revealing myself too early on. I guess you could say, like,
Hmm.
making it my position apparent sooner than
Hmm.
it should be.
Yeah. So here in this situation, firstly, recommend just generally speaking, very very minor, but watch the jump spamming. Jump spamming that's going to reveal your position here. It's going to mean that you're an easier target to headshot. So jumping for no reason usually just not a great thing, but it's a very minor point. Beyond that, here we could probably, if we saw that the Mercy's there, we can so keep your ears open, and we can flash her and kill her very easily here. Now, additionally, this gets a little bit into target priority, which we have not discussed at all, and I don't think you're terrible at it, but it's something to consider here. When it comes to target priority, generally speaking, you want to shoot at the easiest characters to kill because the easiest characters to kill will be the ones that actually die. Now, that means that we probably don't want to spend too much time shooting at tanks because tanks are the hardest things in the game to kill. They have tanking abilities and shields and 2 to 3 times the health of other characters and armor, etc. Now, that's not to say we never shoot at tanks. We shoot at them when they're low, when they're out of position, when we have opportunities to shoot at them, or if they're really the only thing we can shoot at. But if we have equal opportunities, so for example, we have the option to shoot at Mercy or BAP or Orisa, right? That's where we look to shoot at the easier targets to kill. And then additionally, you want to actively seek out the easier targets to kill, even if you don't have the options. For example, BAP might be, slightly harder to kill because he's like a little bit behind the Orisa, but because he's the easier target to kill and you can 2-tap him in comparison to Orisa, who you're going to have to go, 1, 2, 3, 4, Orisa gets healed up, okay, 5, 6, and then she places shield, and that's 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you didn't do anything, right? But
Right.
BAP, if you just take the extra second to acquire him as a target, then you 2-tap him and he's dead, right? So I've seen a couple instances of that. I haven't seen it be too atrocious, but I have seen it. Any questions on
Yeah.
that?
No, that's definitely something that I've been actively working on, especially
Mm,
as I play more I guess like the Ash and things like that. It's like I try to like position and then think about it for a half a second before I pick somebody. Because I
mm,
noticed, obviously I feel like, once I pick somebody and shoot at them, everybody's suddenly just looking at me. So it's like,
mm-hmm.
I got to make sure I pick the right one.
Yep, 100%. Additionally, you know the high ground probably would have been safer angle as well, right, if we were up there. But if once we were on low ground, that was a good spot to go. Now, really quickly, we're going to discuss application, and then we're going to step into the rest from there. So, how do you actually work on the things we've been talking about? Because maybe some of it seems a little bit vague, like, yeah, I get it, don't
Rest in
die, but,
peace.
how do I actually not die? That, I understand the concept, but, not the application might not seem so simple. So, you look to apply these things to work on the exact same way that you work on anything that you try to work on, and that is that while you're playing, you're going to make sure that you actively focus on the thing you're trying to work on. That means that you're not going to autopilot. You're not going to just play to
Path
play, and
betrayed.
contrary to popular belief, you're not going to purely play to win, as that just kind of leads to stagnation. Instead, you play to improve, which leads to wins. Now, what that actually looks like within your gameplay is it means that you are going to be thinking to yourself, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, survivability, 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 positioning, positioning, etc. Right? You're just thinking through all of those different steps within staying alive, right? And then because you're
No
thinking
payment
about staying
required.
alive more
This
often, you're
one's on
being
the
safer,
house.
and you end up staying alive more often. Your survivability is better because you're putting the effort into it. Now, when that keeps up for a long enough period of time, that forms it as a positive habit. Once it forms as a positive habit, then you can move on from there to something else because it just kind of comes naturally now. It's not something you need to work on as much. Now, we talked about a bunch of different things. Don't try to do everything all at once because that will get overwhelming. Instead, do one category or 1 to 3 smaller things within a category. Does that all make sense?
It does. What
Hmm?
category would you recommend first?
That is exactly what we're going to be getting here into a second, right? You do have notes, so I'm going to be a little bit. I'm going to skim over the review portion here, but we are going to go over the main points and then wrap up from there. So, ability usage, flash maybe used a little bit more often. Roll we didn't talk about too much. Overall abilities we didn't really discuss too much. And then we did talk about the air roll tech, right? Look to apply that.
Right.
Overall,
Bingo.
low to medium priority for you to work on, maybe lower end of that. Not a very high priority. Ultimate usage, right? Think through not ulting into a path window. Make sure that you have appropriate. What are my words right now? Appropriate. Make sure you have appropriate survivability that you can actually stay alive through it. So either cover, team support, doing it from far away, or doing it from an off-angle or flank. And then additionally, make sure they're out in the open. They're not able to just walk around the corner very easily. And then fight timing. It'll be situational when do you actually see the opportunity for it, but often that's going to be the later portion of the start of the fight to mid-fight. Kind of in between that is going to be your best timing, situationally at the start, situationally at the end, and then rarely at in between.
Happy
Um,
trails.
and then overall, that was probably around like maybe a higher end of a low to medium. Again, we didn't discuss it a ton. Mechanics, you're working on your new sense. I don't know if we actually discussed a lot about mechanics. We kind of maybe, we talked about target priority there at the end, right? Make sure you're shooting at the right things to shoot at. And then additionally, I think that's that's about it that we talked about within mechanics. So overall, that probably went to low to medium again. Now this is where the heavy hitters start to come in a little bit. Positioning. Make sure that you are taking high grounds and using cover. Good positioning is the usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover, and it's all over the place, right? Make sure that we are staying within our appropriate range as McCree. Even like Ash and whatnot also have their ranges that you prefer. McCree is going to be around 10 meters to 30 meters, right? So look to stay within that, and that's going to be able to set up your skills a little bit better, keep you alive more, right? Negate damage. Don't wide peek, right? So if we're shooting at these guys, I'm not going to come all the way over here and start shooting at them. I'm going to stay near the cover so that I have instant access to it if I need it. Overall, that one was probably like a medium, yeah, around the medium priority for you to work on. Moving on, awareness. Awareness is paying attention to what the heck is going on around you, right? What's happening to your team? Where are they at? Where's the enemy team at? What's just generally happening to your surroundings? And then overall awareness, I would probably say was maybe, maybe like lower end of a medium, right? Whereas your positioning is maybe like higher end of medium, right? So there's a little bit of a distinction between the two.
Right.
And then finally, we have survivability. Survivability is making sure you're staying alive and looking to, so that you can actually do things, right, effectively, right? The 4 things that cause deaths are poor positioning, lack of awareness, over-aggression, and a misuse of ability. So I'd probably say the main one that I saw killing you was your poor positioning, and then maybe a couple other ones added in, right? Death to misuse of abilities with Reaper, and and a death to let's see, what was the other one? To overextension when we rolled into their team, right? Stuff like that. The main one is probably positioning. And then overall, that probably went to a medium high as well, and then that kind of ties into positioning, kind of boosting that up a little bit. And then Reaper. Over to Reaper. You got make sure you're not fading too early, right? Watch for when you need it, and then don't unfade in the middle of their team. And that was approximately it we talked about with Reaper. We only were on him for a minute or two. Then that is about it. So number 1, I would probably recommend working on that positioning, and then we'll say positioning / survivability, because those two seem to be the most intertwined. As a number 1. Number 2 is probably your awareness. Number 3 was going to be a little bit more tied towards the other ones, right? It's kind of, honestly, you could just say that like the other 3 were kind of tied around the number 3 mark, right? Just the ability usage, ultimate usage, and mechanics are just kind of all around the same, needing a little bit of work each, which adds up when it's all of them. You have any questions?
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess my big one is because I like to try to work on just one thing at a time. What point do I go like, okay, I'm surviving enough, I can start working on one of the other ones? You know what I mean?
Yes, sure. So, generally speaking, there will never be the point in which it will be perfect, right? So you're looking for good enough. So it's really when it comes to self-improvement, right? it's really when something else overtakes it that as a higher priority that something else it needs to be worked on. Because as you go through your gameplay, you're going to maybe, let's say you get good at your positioning and then something else will overtake it as a top spot. As you go higher in SR or in skill ranking, whatever, you are going to have more advanced things to learn, and you're going to have, and additionally, you're going to be the standard's going to be higher in different categories, right? Because you're at the higher rank, you're going to be forced into making more mistakes. Overall, the thing, the mechanics and the ability usage and the ult usage that we said was low to mediums this time, if we did a session, in a month or two, those might be medium highs next time, right? It's going to depend. Now, I can help you analyze that as a coach from that kind of third person view, and then pretty much do the same process. But if you're looking to do that yourself, and just self analyze, when have I gotten good at deaths, when firstly just you could look at the numbers, right? There we died 12 times in 15 minutes, so you were maybe a little bit lower than a death a minute. If you are only dying, one death every 2 minutes, then that's probably a lot better, and you made a lot more progress on it, right? That would be, for example, in a 15-minute game, that would be only 7 deaths in comparison to 12. So I'd be almost cutting your deaths in half, right? Approximately. So that, don't take that as a hard standard. It's a little bit nuanced. Honestly, we could spend probably another 10 minutes talking about how you self-identify and self-improve and stuff like that. But we're unfortunately out of the time to do that. But yeah, I mean, that's approximately it. Does that general concept make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah.
Kind of, when it's not actively hindering me anymore.
Yeah.
And then I can move on to something that's more the worst thing.
More
But the list-
pressing.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you.
And then it might, you might get it out of the way now, rank up, 500 SR, and then it resurfaces as a thing to work on, because now, like I said, it's harder. So, yeah, that is about it, unless you had any more questions. I'm going to